I left everything in my life behind in 2023, and it literally changed my life. At the time, I thought it was the end of the world, but in the long run, a lot of those changes were for the better. So a few years ago, I walked away from my life, and it was a life that just seemed so perfect on paper. The perfect relationship, a beautiful New York City apartment, going to FIT, living in New York, starting this career in the world of corporate beauty. But inside, it literally felt like it was killing me. I had this gut feeling that I just could not do it anymore. Like something needed to change, if not everything needed to change. And I had no idea that the next few years of my life would literally be me moving in with my parents, starting over and figuring out my life again from scratch. I think it was so hard because I had this vision in my mind of what my life would be for so long. And when I finally got there, I was so unfulfilled and unsatisfied. And even throughout the journey, there were red flags and signs to me that what I was headed towards was not what I wanted. Okay, let me set the scene for you. It's 2023. I was going to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. So many people have questions for me about this era of my life because it's kind of how I originally popped off on YouTube. I went to FIT, I had amazing friends, which shout out to my girls because they're the ones who got me through literally all of this. I was in a relationship with someone who very clearly did not love me or really care about me. I was on the verge of graduating with a degree in cosmetics and fragrance marketing, and I wanted to do product development in beauty. I knew, like my junior year, I knew that maybe there was another career out there for me, right? Maybe this was not the end all be all, but you know, when you're that far into college and that deep into thinking this is what I want to do, it's very hard to just throw up the white flag, right? Like it's so hard to throw in the towel and say, wait, let me rethink this. Let me start over. And I started to realize my junior year, obviously you guys know Regis died. You know, Regis and I were in a relationship for 6 years. He was my best friend even after we broke up. He basically was my other half. And a whole lot happens after you lose someone who is so central and foundational to who you are. And that shift in my life, it sort of made me realize that I wanted to do something with my life that really meant something, that impacted people in a good way, that was fulfilling and courageous and beautiful. And I really started tuning in and paying attention in my classes at school. And I very, very quickly realized that if I wanted a career that was fulfilling and meaningful and did good for the world, that it probably was not going to be in corporate beauty. And I'm not saying that in a way to make anyone else feel bad about their career. You know, I had the privilege to step back and to change, and some people cannot do that. And I totally understand that. And I also understand that there are positions in the beauty world that are really impactful and do really good things for the world, but I was not seeing myself anywhere in that. And that was really, really hard for my last year of school. It's like, sure, this is interesting, but can I really do this shit for the rest of my life? I don't know. The last year of being at FIT was truly just me figuring out what I was gonna do about that feeling. Was I gonna listen to it? Was I just gonna let it slide and keep pushing and graduate and, you know, work this job I knew I didn't want to work? Was I gonna stay in this relationship that was making me incredibly unhappy? It was very loveless. What did I want to do? Was I able to do it on my own? Would I have to move back in with my parents? Just realizing how much I didn't like what I was doing, it was intense. And you sort of start to see all the ways that walking away will impact your life. It will change maybe the city I had to live in, maybe the amount of money I would be making, maybe the fact that I'd have to move in with my family, maybe the fact that my friends might feel disappointed that I have to leave the city, or my mentors and professors would be disappointed and feel like they wasted their time teaching me. There's this like social consequence, this financial consequence, this internal feeling of I have failed and I'm letting myself down. And that's really hard to face and to decide to push back against. I remember when I realized it was finally time to walk away. My ex and I broke up. I knew I needed to finish school. I knew I had to just get my degree at this point because unfortunately, the school I was in, I couldn't easily transfer all those credits. I'd kind of have to start over. And if I put this much time in already, I needed to just finish. I needed to power through. So my last year of college was so much soul searching, figuring out what was next, what I wanted. And I remember applying to like 200 jobs in beauty and not hearing back from a single one. That was a really pivotal moment for me of like, this is not meant for me. And I can keep trying to make this work, but I don't think it's gonna work. So I kind of gave up the fight and I said, you know what? When my lease is up in July, I'm gonna go back home. I remember telling my friends I was moving back, telling my favorite professors, telling my boss at the time I had to quit because I was literally leaving New York City. And it was heartbreaking. It really was. Still to this day, I hate that I had to leave New York. I miss it more than anything. That's where my heart is. That's where my home is. That's where I belong. But I knew that there was something in me that was pushing back on being there. And I knew that I needed a break. First of all, I needed time to grieve, to process the grief and trauma I'd been through with the loss of Regis. I knew that I needed to figure out what I was gonna do with my life, and I needed to take some time to just shed this idea of who I thought I was. I spent so long throwing my identity into being in the beauty industry and having this career and having this level of wealth and success, and when it really came down to having it, it didn't feed my soul in the way like I would want something like my career to. This next point in my journey, I like to call it the void. In July, graduated college, broke up with my boyfriend, moved home with literally no idea what the next 2 years would bring, okay? You cannot pay 2023 me to guess any of this accurately. I spent a lot of time grieving this old version of myself, feeling like a failure, feeling defeated, feeling like I messed up really bad, feeling like, oh, if I just would power through this terrible career and job, I would finally find success. I'd be financially stable. I'd live in the city. Everything would be fine. I'm just being selfish for wanting something different or wanting more for myself. And if you're going through this, I know so many of you probably have that same thought process towards yourself and your career and feeling like a failure and feeling like it's selfish to want to change. You're letting other people down. And I can tell you that as much as it does feel that way in the moment and it sucks, it will turn around. You have to get through the hard stuff before you get to finally feeling whole again and feeling like it was all worth it again. I think it was also hard, especially on LinkedIn. I literally hate LinkedIn, but seeing everyone post their post-grad jobs and these careers that they were moving into and kind of their next step. And here I was feeling like, oh my God, I literally can't get a job. I don't want a job in this field, and I moved back in with my parents. I looked back on my 2019 self going into FIT, seeing this young, ambitious, big dreaming teenager who has now morphed into this sad, depressed, lonely adult who had no clue what I wanted to do with my life and had seen their dreams crumble before their eyes. And that really, really sucked. It was so hard. And I know now that so many people, even the ones who do get jobs and look like they have it all figured out, they're also facing a lot of these existential questions of like, what now? But there was a lot of grief. Finally having the time and space to process the loss of Regis, also processing the loss of that relationship I was in, leaving college, meeting a new person that I fell head over heels in love with, who I'm still with to this day, shout out Jake, navigating if I even wanted a new relationship, all while trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life. And I think that question is the hardest. And sometimes I feel like we'll never have it fully figured out. And there is such an unspoken but very, very present pressure to figure it out, to have this very formulaic life. Graduate high school, go to a 4-year college, get your degree, get your job, work your job, work your way up, meet your spouse, get married, have kids, and I just don't fit into that mold. I really don't. And you know, even today, there's still people who try to push me into that path of life. It's so not who I am. It will never be who I am. And I think accepting that has helped me process the grief around this life I used to think I wanted. And of course, the pressures of social media make all of this a million times harder, because we see people our age who have 1,000 times the money that we do, 1,000 times the fame and the fortune and the big house on the beach and all these crazy life stories. And then we look at ourselves and we're like, am I doing something wrong? Am I enough? And it's so parasocial. It's so weird, and it's so not normal to be comparing ourselves to people who are just not the same as us and who don't have the same goals and dreams and situations that we have. So the next phase of this process I've sort of called the becoming. And this is when things started to shift for me. And it was about a year and a half ago, things took a turn. I had a job just freelancing, editing videos for different local businesses in my hometown. And yes, I still live in my hometown. Thank goodness at that point, you know, I had moved out of my parents' place. So I got my first solo apartment, which really did give me that sense of like, okay, I'm getting somewhere, I'm doing something. And I even moved back to the city part-time. So I had an apartment in Brooklyn and an apartment in my hometown, which was financially a terrible choice, but it was fun and I did it. And I got that New York fix that I really needed. Something that will always be true for me is that New York is home. Like, New York City is home to me. My soul is there, my heart is there, my people are there. I've had to let that go a little bit, at least for now. I've learned to trust the process and know that there will come a time where I can finally return home. And just keeping that as a goal for myself has really motivated me the past year and a half. There came a time where I realized, okay, freelance is making me money in the interim before I figure out what I want to do with myself, but I really need to do some serious soul searching. I spent a lot of time talking to people, watching content like this, doing research online, and figuring out what really spoke to me at this point in my life and what I could see myself committing to long term. And that's where I discovered funeral directing. And it sounds so random, but it's so interesting because, you know, the people in my life that I've told about my career shift into funeral service, they've all been like, wow, this was so obviously your thing from the start. Like, you should have been doing this all along. And I'm like, I know, it makes so much sense now. Am I going back to college as a 25-year-old to get another degree, to start over? Yeah, I am. Are there going to be 18-year-olds in my classes? Yes, there are. But I don't think I would have the grit and the skill and the passion to be the funeral director I know I'm going to be if I didn't have all of this life experience. I think something I really try to keep in mind is not to live with regret that I didn't figure this whole career out sooner and that I had to go through all of this work and all these trials and tribulations to get there. I think that's what life is. And we're taught that it's supposed to be so smooth and formulaic, and it's just not. Like, we all go through things. We all have these bumps in the road that we could have never seen coming, and that's what makes us better. That's what gives us the agility and the strength to power through and to be passionate and to care and to love and to give back. You know, at first I was like, how did I not realize that being a funeral director, being a mortician was the thing for me way sooner? I mean, the answer is so simple. It's just, if I did this at 18, straight out of high school, I would have quit by now. Like, this job takes so much dedication, so much time, so much love, so much attention, so much care, and 18-year-old me could not have sustained this. I've had to practice a lot of gratitude in my journey. Also, if I never went to FIT, I never would have met Keon or Claire or Michael or Frankie or Sammy or any of these people that make my life whole today. My entire world would be different. I would not be the person I am today without my experience at FIT. So I just try to stay grateful for it rather than being angry and regretful and feeling like I have to start over, because I'm not starting over. I'm just turning the page and continuing forward in a new direction. My healing journey was very important when I left New York and came home. I think that was something that needed to happen in its own way. I couldn't have done that in the city because there's just too much distraction even though I love it there and it's the most perfect place in the world in my mind, I could not heal the way that I've been able to heal in upstate New York, in nature, around my family, around my siblings, around my childhood friends who all knew Regis and grew up around Regis too. We had each other in that, and that to me was such a gift that I didn't even know I was getting at the time. And I just also want to say, like, none of this was linear. This wasn't just like, oh, I, hit this low and then I came home and it was all up. There are still days today in 2025, years later, that I am so angry at my past self, that I feel so upset and disappointed and I feel like a failure and I'm like, why am I not where I want to be? You have to just remind yourself about all of the steps and all the progress you've made. You would not ever be where you are today if it weren't for all those decisions you made as a teenager and whatever led you to today. I think if I could tell my 2022 version of myself anything, it would honestly be to trust your gut. Like, this isn't right for you. You don't need to force it. You're not a failure. People will still love you and care about you even if you leave New York City. You're allowed to make changes. You're allowed to be different. You're allowed to let go of what you thought was right for you. And that was the hardest part. It felt like I was grieving myself, grieving my dreams, grieving my career, grieving everything I had worked for. Everything I had done up to this point was for the beauty industry and was for that career. And, having to write a resume on a blank slate was like a crazy concept to me. But I think I would just tell myself, like, a lot of people do this and it's okay to do this and it's brave to do this and you're allowed to start over. And I wish more people talk to themselves this way instead of feeling like, oh, you're moving back in with your parents, or you didn't get this 6-figure job, whatever. It's a journey, and I promise you, the people that got the career, got the nice apartment, didn't move back in with their parents, they're going through their own struggles too. No version of this is perfect. No version of this is correct. If you're going through something like this, just know, 1, you're not the only one. 2, it is a very normal thing. Something could happen that changes your entire direction, and that is okay. And I wish that more people told me that. It's okay if you're no longer passionate about what you have been passionate about. It's okay if you want to cut off your friends. It's okay if you want to break up with your partner. You're allowed to do that, and you're allowed to feel confident and empowered in doing these things and making these choices. So in that sense, I am so grateful that I trusted myself. It took me time to get there and it still is hard, but I'm glad that I listened and that I didn't try to force something I knew was not right for me. I'm grateful that somewhere in there I understood that life is literally not about an end goal, but it's cliche, but it is about everything you did to get there and all the people you met and all the lessons you learned and all the books you read and all the places you saw and just every little thing about my journey to becoming a funeral director has been so important and beautiful and terrible and life-altering, and it's just this crazy experience. Like, that's just life. Life is not supposed to be all these steps. Living through these experiences and figuring them out and struggling and picking yourself up and learning more about yourself is really the point. It's really the whole purpose. So here is my message to anyone who is struggling with this whole thing, who's starting over, who feels like a failure, anyone who has no idea what to do next with your life and sees everyone around you doing all these great things. Here's what I have to say to you. If you're in that burn it down and start over from scratch moment in your life, this is your sign that it won't feel so treacherous and terrible forever. It's worth burning it down. It's worth starting over. And if you already made it to the other side and you figured out the thing that makes you happy and you let go of a lot of things to go to the next place in your life, I would love to hear what helped you through. You guys, I know this video was like a little different for what I do on my channel, but I felt like this was important to say. I definitely want to make a video about why I left the beauty industry. I get the question a lot of like, how did you get into funeral directing and why would you leave behind this quote unquote successful career and what forced you away from something you once loved. And there are so many reasons. I would love to talk more about that. So definitely let me know if you want me to make that video. Give this a thumbs up if so. Thank you guys for watching. And just remember, if you're going through something like this, you're not alone and there is something beautiful on the other side. So just keep pushing. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have not already, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I love you and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.